This is not merely a building. It's a sanctuary of remembrance, a threshold where the veil parts, and minds once lulled to sleep begin to rise. This is the house of reawakening minds.
I entered in silence, intellect and despair, seeking refuge from illusions thick in the air. Walls lined with scrolls, lectures dense with light, where knowledge resurrects what was hidden from sight. No pulpit performance, no charismatic show, just a word in its purity, allowing the soul to grow. History unpacked with surgical precision, exposing falsehood, restoring vision. They taught me jurisdiction, the power of a name, how to stand in one's truth, free from legal games, from colonial codes to Moorish descent. I learned that ignorance is the true imprisonment. Not just the church, this is consciousness refined. I found myself inside the house of.
This is sacred ground, not just wood and stone. A haven for the seekers who once felt alone. Here the veil is lifted, the contract unwinds. In the house of reawakening minds. Truth is the altar, wisdom is the flame. Every soul remembered, every bloodline reclaimed. Time collapses and the spirit aligns. Inside the house of reawakening
We
light.
speak of capitis, diminution, and trust law with grace, pulling veils from the statutes that distort the race. Reverend Doctor don't preach, she teaches through metaphysical keys and universal speeches. From Egypt to Amexim, maps are redrawn, and the minds of the lost are profoundly reborn. They decode etymology, undo the brands, expose how black was a corporate sleight of hand. This is reclamation through language and tone, when status is corrected and sovereigns are grown. From natural law to the astrological signs, the cosmos converge in these sacred confines. This ain't dogma, it's the science of the divine. Every lecture a seed in the garden of the mind.
You said know thyself but gave no guide, until I found the house where illusions died. Here the soul remembers, the contract is clear. We are the heirs and the ancestors cheer. This is sacred ground, not just wood and stone. A haven for the seekers who once felt alone. Here the veil is lifted, the contract unwinds. In the house of reawakening minds. Truth is the altar, wisdom is the flame. Every soul remembered, every bloodline reclaimed. Time collapses and the spirit aligns. Inside the house of reawakening.
They don't ask you to believe.
I find what it is I should know, 'cause it's just a matter of time. But you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living the life. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds.
Happy Holy Day, Moors, and welcome once again to House of Reawakening Minds. For those of you who may be tuning in for the first time, House of Reawakening Minds exists for the exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are an awakening center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and more science, an awakening and learning experience we hope for all ages. But before we get into tonight's subject matter, which is parallel timelines, escaping the circus of distraction, I want to take a moment or a few moments of that to express my heartfelt gratitude to everyone who attended last weekend's Private Lives Conference, and especially to our presenters, Teach and Lady J, Grand Sheik, Tarik Bey, Dr. Elegant, Dr. Dave Levy Bey, and the sister Deborah Clark Smith L. I also want to give a shout out to our amazing food vendors, Yummy Tummy,
Yep,
Drop Squad
yeah,
Kitchen,
serious.
and the Brandons. We
Mhm.
feasted well. And to
Yep.
be honest, Grand, she got, I wanted to cancel it. I
Yeah.
wanted to cancel it, but it was Sister Cynthia Martinell who convinced me to go
Yes.
forward, and I'm glad she did. I'm
Yeah.
glad she did. Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you to all of you who
Yeah.
responded to Grand Sheik's and my call to action a couple of weeks ago. Because of you, the numbers increased, and even a few tickets were even donated.
Yes.
There weren't as many in attendance as we've had in the past, but there's such a thing as quality over quantity, and this year, even we had a smaller quality group. No shade on the previous groups, but a smaller quality group, which came from coast to coast, from California to all places, Texas, all Canada. In between Canada. So we had this more intimate setting, and we received awesome information. It was practical, it was useful, and things that I didn't know. But that I intend to implement going forward. So but I also want to let you all know that next year's conference is going to be in August, and we don't have the exact date yet, but you'll have plenty of time this time to prepare to attend. And we expect it to be bigger and more diverse, and definitely even more informational. Not just like what we got, because we got some powerful stuff this time. But we can't predict where we're going to be in August of 2026, but we do know that the House of Reawakening Minds it's going to continue to do what needs to be done in order to bring you the valuable information and that you desire, and to keep you up to date, a level of truthfulness. So don't forget to subscribe to our website, which is www.houseofreawakeningminds.org. I'm gonna put this up real quick. You can scan that QR code up in the upper left-hand corner, that's up there near Grand Sheik's head, and that'll take you to our website. That way you can stay informed about what we're doing. I don't know if you want to add anything about this past weekend, because well, I just want to say this. Grand Sheik was scheduled to he opened up on Thursday night, which was our meet and greet night, but we had the privilege and the honor of you being able to teach all through Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. One night, I think they kept you there till 3:00 in the morning.
Yes, close to that. Yes.
I don't know, but you want to add anything about your experience?
I enjoyed the instructions with Sister Debbie. With the chi fit. What was it? No, energy in motion or something. We are getting it.
I
needed that.
We had a good workout with Sister Deborah, Deborah Clark Smith L. I'm hoping that she'll come on House of Reawakening Minds channel and do a fitness thing that we can follow. But I mean, and on that last day we had more men that were still there than the sisters, and they were working. Y'all were working.
Serious? Y'all was like getting it.
Y'all were working out, and she had us going. So we are trying to figure out if we can get that video that maybe online. But the experience and the
food was excellent.
Like I said,
as usual. But,
Yummy Tummy, Drop Squad Kitchen, and the Brandons, they fed us. They really fed us. So we had a great time.
It was good to see Dr. Dave there again.
And Dr. Elegon. So we did everything we said we were going to do except for the walk. We didn't do the walk this year, but we had a good time. Everything.
Teaching Jay did her thing as usual, and again, and it's interesting. And timely too, because that information breaks down that veil, because actually, most people have been living under the false paradigm, and truth breaks down that veil that allows them to, be close, governing, and the people don't see them. They can't hide anymore.
And people wanted, why we don't record it, but
some things we don't,
and we were learning about how to live. Some people who live in private stay in private. There's a fine line, and they don't cross it. So you can get to them, but they're not going to put themselves out there just like that. So we appreciate them. But any of you who want to come and visit us on the fourth Fridays, they've committed
Yeah.
to coming every fourth Friday, and now that Grand Sheik is is off of his medical leave. Grand Sheik is there also, so we get the benefit of both. We get a twofer, and every now and then I might chime in and do something. So but yeah, so it won't be as intense as what we got this weekend, but it certainly will get you started on what you need to know in order to step from the.
That's like absolute, and it's more important now. I mean, it's always been important, but it's extremely important now, mainly because of what we all knew. Those who have been geopolitically cognate, recognizing the breakdown of institutions,
right?
And because people have been tied to institutions both mentally and social politically, they will be injured by not having an insight or an oversight to make adjustments ahead of time as these things break. Because what occurs with when you're dealing with organized, entrenched, corrupt pseudo government, they sacrifice people, and logically they're not going to tell on themselves. They'll just like work things to the last minute, and as things collapse, people are caught and then have nowhere to turn. But from their position, the people are expendable. And this is another reason why it's important, to have an understanding of the issue of the parallel operations,
right.
And that is the key to understand some of what you're being presented with tonight.
Yeah, but with that said, people ask me all the time, and probably get to you too, Dr. G, do you think all this stuff that's going on is it random? You think it's coincidence? And that every week there's a new it's a new catastrophe, a new crisis, a new viral video, a new reason to be afraid. And my answer is no. It's not random. It's engineered, it's curated, and it's designed.
Yes.
It's designed.
Yes.
It's designed.
And that is very to know that is very key to comprehending and understanding the presentment that you brought to share with people tonight. Nothing in politics and nothing in finance and nothing or anything in the mass media happens by accident, but you already know that.
Right.
So serious attention is currency.
Oh, and when you put in other words, you're saying when you give attention to something, you're expending.
Because that's energy. Electricity is current, so and currency is movement,
Right.
And where the mind goes, energy flows. Because remember, energy operates in the whole principle of the universal operations is energy. And so one of the things with the deception and the parallel issue is that if the masses don't know that that's primal and key to all operations, and by people who are in a governing position, knowing that and not informing the public as a general erudition or educational principle, keeps the public always at bay and always, subject to injury on multiple levels.
Well, why would they give the people that information, especially if they're party to what's going on? See, I mean, we falsely think that, like you said, that they're our government and
Because
that they look out for our best interests.
Yes.
But you always let us know.
That's part of the corruption, and it's part of the parallelogram operations. And people don't know that because one is that the dark side, Satanists who actually are governing, and the people who've been presented in which they refer to as the structured U.S. United States Corporation Company governing body are actually both in fact, and this is what makes it really, really uncomfortable, untenable, and difficult for people to handle the reality, because as the veil is pulled down, they're kind of like seeing the face of Satan. and and because of lack of understanding can generate fear, but logically with knowledge they don't have to fear. It's another reason why you chose to share a lot of, to come at this in casual conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
To look at these things realistically, because by the veil being broken, it's unavoidable. That means the whole world is starting to see the demonology that's structured within government structures. And because in the mentalities, people's expectations of what government was told to be, and discovering that it's never been any of that, and then having the need to analyze it for their own protection is key to also why you're sharing this.
And here's something else I want to share before it flips totally. What you were saying to me made me think about when you say, the veil, it goes back to the Wizard of Oz and the curtain being pulled, and you see
because it's right on the other side,
right.
And to the curtains pull, you never knew it's parallel,
right?
But you never knew it because the curtain was a blinder,
right? So you're hearing the great and powerful Oz,
yes.
Booming through
and
some
so that's
the
illusion and delusion mixed, and that the interesting thing, Dr. J, is the information that's being exposed to humanity now in degrees is discomforting, because we like to think of ourselves have been, even if we didn't know a lot of things, people like to think of themselves as having at least some level of spiritual insight. And to be fooled so thoroughly for so many generations, is kind of traumatic. However, we have to kind of grow up and accept reality and start dealing with these things. And logically, the more you know about what's going on, the less need to fear and the less power they have to project fear and confusion, And so attention, as you said before, is currency. And where the mind goes, energy flows. And governments, corporations, priesthoods, and they always have known this. And this is one of the things that people are beginning to, by their experience, recognizing the functions of secret societies that, meaning never told, but it's becoming obvious. And in Rome, they called it bread and circuses, and give the people cheap grain and endless games in the Colosseum, and they would never question why the empire was rotting at its core.
Listen, how did that continue on today? What is everybody looking at now? Football,
Yes.
Basketball, baseball. This is the same type of theater or circus. Believe it or not, as much as I just started learning and enjoying football, some and basketball, where I would never look at it before, but I realize what it's for. Where
some of the faces have changed.
It's
but
a
the game is the
distraction.
same.
I realize it to be a
game
distraction.
is the same.
Wow.
And the deal is that for the most part, people think these were just natural evolving parts of society, not knowing that these were deliberate, structural, institutional inputs for the purpose of creating the veil between the parallel operations of a false reality for generations. And the view of the false reality distracts us from reality. And logically, that allows them to maintain power and allows them to do things to manipulate humanity, to injure humanity, to suck off of humanity, to leech off of humanity, and to divert the guilt or the projection or to project the faults or the causes elsewhere. And they have been doing it quite successfully. But of course, that veil is coming down now. Now in North America, particularly in the Americas, because you already know America's North, Central, and South, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Today, the bread is fast food, the fiat credit, right?
Yeah.
And a structured system around fiat as if it were the reality, but by being under their control, that gave them power on multiple levels. And subsidies, and the circus is TikTok, circus is YouTube, circus is CNN, Fox, Hollywood. The costumes change, the technology changes. The principle has never changed. You keep the masses distracted and keep them in fear, and the corporate operatives could govern them without resistance or with minimal resistance at most.
Wow.
And it is always, and as always, you know, that parallel operations of corrupt government coincides with what they refer to as resets. And look at the pattern, because there's a pattern that's researchable. One of the patterns is 1776. One is 1871. One is 1933. One is 1971. One is 2001. One is 2020. Each one of these dates, when researched in relationship to negative effects projected onto the general populace of humanity, and each one shows itself to be a marker of a major financial pseudo-political reset. As an example, for the operating at North America under the pseudo-jurisdiction of the United States Corporation Company that has been promoted as a country when it's actually a private corporation of the Jesuit Order and the Circle Church and Chancery in 1871. The organic republic, the legitimate order of body politic operating at North America under Constitution, Treaty, and the Ordinance of 1787, and the Confederation of the Asiatics, indigenous peoples here, was overthrown and shelved, and the corporate United States Corporation Company was chartered. And in 1933, as another example, the gold of the people was deceptively seized by the United States Corporation Company owners under the guise of government and seized from the people, and the people were pledged as collateral for the debt and the refinancialization of that private corporation. And in 1971, the dollar, which is gold and silver coin, that must be, whenever the word dollar is used, remember, dollar means gold coin. That's what it means. Gold or silver coin by weight and measure. So the dollar was cut, or what they would call disconnected from the gold, etc., which is both a deception and a violation and a constitutional abridgment. And in 2001, a quote-unquote war on terror was launched to mask another economic shift. In 2000,
what happened in 2001 in New York?
Yes,
we know that was
inside. Everybody in the world knows it was an inside job, but that was an excuse for what they did, and that's a conversation again on its own, in its own right. In the year 2020, the entire world was locked down under a manufactured health policy, while trillions of energy represented notes and vouchers were moved quietly behind the curtain.
Right.
That's a veil, right? Isn't it? Curtain's a veil.
Right.
And so each time that they've done this, right, blood, fear, and confusion was projected onto humanity on a massive scale. And each time our people of the land, the Moors, etc., Aboriginal people, that means the Aboriginal people of the land collectively, descendants of the ancient Canaanite Moabites, who are actually the original peoples of the land, sometimes referred to as descendant Moroccans, which is Al-Moroccan, which is American, etc., were used as the fuel. And our labor, our energy, and our genius was used or misused, etc., by those operatives. And that is in relationship to the dollar lie that we discussed before, and the attention to that lie. Dr. G?
Yeah. Well, yeah, as you were saying, that Grand Chic, I'm thinking about how it's the same pattern even in the headlines that
Yes.
we scroll past. Take the so-called, I think it's called asteroid three eye
Yeah.
atlas or something like that. It's
Yeah.
allegedly is hurtling towards Earth.
Yes.
It's allegedly a threat. Every few years we get a new asteroid scare. You have to go back and look at, like you said, the pattern. We get a new scare of something. The name changes.
Distraction.
Yeah, the details change, but the pattern of distraction, it stays the same. And every single time, the goal is to stir up fear and to keep the people glued to the headlines and keep us waiting for the next disaster, or waiting for that disaster that they've been prophesying.
Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting how they claim not to know what it is, but they know it's a threat,
and they always know what's coming.
Yes.
Yeah. So meanwhile, here we are, folks staring up at the sky, and we're staring up at the sky, but what's happening down here? Yes. That's the issue.
Exactly.
And because laws are being passed,
Exactly.
dollars, if you will, are being siphoned, and freedoms are being erased. Especially what happened, in my lifetime. I can think, I wasn't aware of things before, like I became in later years, but 2001, we realized they took a lot from us for that. Because we know these are the folks that believe that there's order out of chaos. So they create the chaos and then bring in the so-called order, which is normally some kind of erosion of rights, of the birthrights of what we inalienable rights. Right.
Out of chaos. Order.
So, you don't notice it sometimes because we're too busy. Somebody said, wondering if Bruce Willis is going to show. He's going to show up like the movie Armageddon and save you from the rocket, or Will Smith, and then whatever they went up and then, and it's not just asteroids. It's look at the ice raids. Panic, fear is division. People worried about who belongs where, and neighbors are turning against each other. Meanwhile, the real legislation being passed has nothing to do with immigration. It's banking. It's banking. It's surveillance. It's corporate control, but you don't see it because your attention is being snatched. And looking at the headlines, TikTok, YouTube, the reactions and so forth. Look at this. Like I said, look at the endless scandals, the endless celebrity stories. I just heard. I told you the day it said that Mr. PD got 50 months. I'm not sure whether it's 50 with time served or not, but
how many times that he was rearrested in jail, and then how many times, it's almost like they had jails inside of jails, because every other week they was rearresting him for some other alleged violation. And if that is not proof of distraction, not only that, if the claims altogether had any validity, due process required that should have been executed quite some time ago.
Right.
Because clearly even due process was violated. Because if anyone did even half the stuff they accused him of, it shouldn't even be right now on the news. It should have been settled a long time ago. But but that shows that it's a orchestrated distraction. It's not an issue of guilt or innocence. It's a matter of orchestrated actually, it's malfeasance, government malfeasance, or even it to be going on this long.
Right. It's interesting, but it's just one thing after another. And who's cloned now? Look at their eyes, they reptilian. Their tongue is a lizard tongue. Do you see the neck swelling up like
all that stuff?
Is it a man? Is he or her? It's so much stuff that they keep us, looking at and debating. And is it real? Is it fake? Is it AI? Is it deep fake?
All of that couldn't even go on.
Is he a clone?
with these people? All of that couldn't even go on such a broad basis by these people's hands by themselves, without organized network reaching all levels of government and corporate structure. it couldn't have gone on.
Well, it's interesting, and this isn't anything that's in the news, but I had there was a lady I met for the first time Tuesday night, and with a friend of mine, and she came over to House of Reawakening Minds, and when she did, we got into a conversation, and in that conversation, she gave a story about when she used to work at Amazon. And she said that when they worked at Amazon, they had a lot of Africans from the continent that were working at Amazon, and that
from the other side,
yes. And that stayed to themselves. And that was one African brother that sat over, like on the break time, sat at the table with the rest, like us. It wasn't just I guess us, but it was a mixture, because people that worked there were sitting together. Yes. But they isolated themselves. And she said this lady was saying to him, "What are you doing over there with them? You're not supposed to be sitting with them." And she said the guy, she badgered him so bad, the guy was halfway up out the seat, and he didn't know whether to sit. She said they were going, "You can stay here with us. You can stay here." But the woman kept saying, "Why are you with them? We don't associate with them. They don't even know who they are." Yeah. Right. And what reminded me of the fact, and she said the lady also said, "We learn about you when they come through the immigration process. They are instructed. We are so important."
But that's not even news.
It's not news. Yes. It's not news. But it just lets you know there is no other ethnicity or group that they specifically teach as a part of the naturalization process to beware of. They're lazy. They're they lie. They're criminals, and that's what they teach them as a part of them coming in, and then give them the white status.
No, they don't give them.
They are able to take on.
Let's make this very clear.
All right. That's what's on their cards. White.
Yes. No. Listen.
However they got it.
No. Let me qualify it.
All right.
Let's qualify it. The status already exists with them. It is not given by the U.S. corporate operatives. The miscomprehension of what the white status is gives that appearance. See, it's like this. Those who have the power to give have the power to remove.
Right.
That's what I'm really.
That's the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh. Yeah.
Yes, because the Lord's of London. But the deal of it is that status already belongs to them. However, it doesn't belong to the people
who have it,
who are claiming it, who are operating, i.e., or failing to exercise the Naturalization Act. And this goes back to why we got to really kind of refine and clear this up, meaning that little things that are projected solidifies false concepts if we don't carefully change things, because the idea that people have when seeing that is that they're granting to them something when they're not. Right. They're acknowledging that the status exists, because it already does, because they've denied it of us who are the real Saba, and sometimes called the real Jew. Now, remember, Saba, Jew is a cover for Saba. So even when people talking about Jew, that's a misconception, if you get the point. But it's popular. The real issue is the Sabians. Who are the real Sabians? That's because the real i.e. Hebrew is in captivity. That's what the rejection is. The rejection evolves around that. Are we clear? Mm-hmm. So that's what people need to really understand. So white is a status, and just for the people, I think it's important that we make that very clear. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people still think it's something that's given. It's not given. It is an existing political reality. And the deal of it is, the problem that they're having with now, those people would be considered basically immigrants, right? Mm-hmm. Right? Or alien visitors, right? They would come under the Naturalization Act, right? Mm-hmm. So when that if that issue, and it is an issue, right? Why is no one talking about the Immigration Act? Why? Because they go back to looking at it would bring out, you know how like when you bring down one false concept or veil, it exposes other things unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
See, because now that opens up a can of worms, right, with the Naturalization Act. Now, the reason why, one of the major reasons why they always apart them and instruct them before they're brought onto the land under the Immigration Act. Why? Because the real Al-Moroccans, i.e., the real so-called Jew, is these very people who think, who have been told they're African-American, Black, Indian, Negro guys. The real people of the land. That's why the focus, that's the focus that's on us. You see?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the interesting thing that must be very clear with people is that they don't have that to give. Now, let's go to law, Dr. G. And this is very important, right?
Mm-hmm.
So our people, when other immigrants come here, and there's an assumption that white status is given to them as an affront to us, who are the people of the land, the Aboriginals who've been abused for centuries, right? This is what must be understood. Free white persons, which is a law term, right?
Mm-hmm.
So free white persons, which was referred to in the Naturalization Act. Therefore, people should study the Naturalization Act, shouldn't they? All right, because that's important. That's it with all these immigrants that deal with them brothers and sisters that are sitting at that table and motive in the background. So you need to know what the discussion is, right? And that was amended on July the 14th of 1870. So write that date down. And it has meaning naturally or soon to be given to it, right? When first used in 1 Statute 103C3, meaning all persons belonging to the European races then commonly counted as white, and to their descendants, including the descendants of in other countries to which they have immigrated. And so that's an assumption or given to them with the amending of the Naturalization Act in 1870. That's when they start taking on the title white. So it means generally assumed. So that is an assumed legal status process that was taken on but not valid, right? See, so free white persons includes all European Jews more or less intermixed with persons of Celtic, Scandinavian, Teutonic, Iberian, Latin, Greek, and Slavic descent. Free white persons includes Magyars, Lapps, and Finns, and the Basque and the Albanians. Free white persons includes the mixed Latin, Celtic, Iberian, and Moorish inhabitants of Phoenicia, of Spain, and Portugal, inhabitants of Sicily, and the mixed Slav and Tartar inhabitants of South Russia. See, so now you see the Moorish, Tartarian history. See, we're the white people. You see? And so people don't know that because they assume it means complexion. It's a legal, lawful status of actually natural Aboriginal and peoples that are described in these lands, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Of South Russia. Free white persons does not mean Caucasian race. I must repeat. Free white person does not mean Caucasian race. It does not mean Aryan race. Free white person does not mean Indo-European race says, nor does free white person mean the mixed Indo-European, Dravidian, Semitic, and Mongolian peoples who inhabit Persia. A Syrian of Asiatic birth and descent will not be entitled to become a naturalized citizen of the United States as being a free white person. And then you have literal
Case law.
7 lines of law cases to reference. So that refinement of information is why I interjected, because it would give the impression, just stated like that it was something that they gave, when the very people that are using or misusing it are themselves not free white people.
Yes.
And you know, and
so this, he says, so the Caucasians are the real Negroes.
Exactly, they traded places. So then you got to know where the word came from. So Negro, the word Negro comes from the scientific word, the troglodyte, which is Negro Yavera Arebo, which means black chimpanzee monkey. This is what Darwin, that's what they're talking about, the chimpanzee. Now, again, let's use it. Let's go. Let's break the veil, right? So let's go to Oxford Dictionary, right? This is again, this is Oxford, right? And it shows you again why they do not teach both etymology, and also why, from a political perspective, it's important for them to what they refer to commonly as miseducate the Negro type thing. Mm. The title itself is a switch up. So, hybrid.
You want me to read this?
Yes. Oxford Dictionary.
Okay, hybrid. Okay. Hybrid, an animal or plant that is offspring of individuals of different kinds, usually different species. A person of that's the second definition. A person of mixed descent or mixed ancestry, now usually derogatory. A thing derived from heterogeneous sources or composed of incongruous elements. A word forms of elements from different languages. Let me keep going.
Yes, keep going.
Anthony Hurley, showy man-made hybrid seen in florist shops. A psychotherapist is a kind of hybrid, a quasi-scientist, a quasi-artist. Of mixed character, heterogeneous, derived from unlike sources of a parliamentary bill, treated in some respects as a public bill and in others as a private one, of a computer, employing both digital and analog methods of rock, formed by the mixing of two magmas or by the incorporation of solid rock into magma, bred or produced as a hybrid.
Keep on going.
Hybrid perpetual, any rose of a group of formerly popular garden hybrids derived in part from the Bourbon rose. Hybrid swarm, a variable population resulting from the hybridization of neighboring species. Hybrid tea, any rose of a group of hybrids now much grown, evolved from crosses between hybrid perpetuals and the tea rose. Hybrid vigor, the hybridism, the fact or condition of being hybrid, the production of hybrids, hybridist, hybridizer, hybridility.
Yes.
That's it.
Now, what you'll find now, this is after 60, right? Hold on. This is print date, right?
7.
All right, this is
33.
33. This is older editions, right?
It goes up to
now
93.
But this is like 93, right?
Right.
And when you look in the older editions here, what you'll find here listed in the 8th injury, which is moved out, and that's why I'll show you the value of older books, and I was expecting in this because it's only in Oxford, and it would say, "We Englishmen, at best, are but heterogeneous hybrids," in your dictionary, right? So you understand and comprehend why that's removed. Now, when you look at the Naturalization Act, then when you look at the things like the average person wouldn't even dawn on them that knowledge would take you back to the Naturalization Act, and then it would take you into looking at more than what's assumed with the murder of Abraham Lincoln that would seem to be not related, and would never dawn on the average person that the conversation would lead into an examination of Ulysses Grant's motives as to modifying the Naturalization Act in 1870. And the problem that they're having with when they open up the so-called borders problem that they're having right now, that they're dealing with, and what happened that you refer to, that demonstration at that table, that in the minds of the people, it would not even dawn on them that they're dealing with the cover-up of the heterogeneous hybrid Europeans assuming the authority to bestow white person status, of which they themselves are not. In other words, it goes into exposing social engineering, not just present case, but going back to 1870. And so it opens up another, a broad can of worms, if you get the point, a can of worms in operations that the average person who does not know the real social political history, engineering, it would never dawn onto them the connection. And so you have hybrid Europeans of the United States Corporation Company operating on the land, determining who's a free white person and denying it to the people of the land, and they themselves can't be free white people.
Here's another.
But they're assumed to be.
Here's another comment. Was not the act, the Naturalization Act, primarily through the guarantee of equal protection under the law to galvanize nations to come to America and amalgamate under the guise of merely being for making quote unquote blacks citizens? Now exactly what you just presented is part of the false social engineering. You see, the very people who are making those legal legislative determinations themselves couldn't be free white people, but they were assumed to be free white people. But because the people like today looking at it are looking at them as being Americans when actually they're hybrid Europeans occupying America, and who have been, for their own benefit, social politically, contaminating, modifying the Naturalization Act to hide the fact that they're colonists then and they're colonists now. You need to understand. In other words, they weaponized the Naturalization Act. That's why you don't see them talking about the Naturalization Act. Logically, if they're having what they call an immigration problem, and they are because they created it, what is the logical thing to be done? To go to the Naturalization Act and solve the problem. What happens? It opens up a can of worms because these people have nationalities, and the Europeans here have been calling themselves white people, and they're not. But on the surface, it would never dawn on people to even look at that.
Because when you see people argue or even making this argument, there's no such thing as a white citizen, and there's no such thing as a black citizen of anything. Citizen implies a member of a nation politically, whether homogeneous. So you're dealing with the issues, what is called in law, jus soli, write that down, jus soli, and jus sanguinis. Write that down. Jus sanguinis and jus soli, and there's a distinction. This has much to do with the corruption of Ulysses Grant with the Naturalization Act, July the 14th, 1870. Then you go into the operations of the Whittemore Convention at Philadelphia, 1854, with Horace Greeley leading, or you might say emceeing, and the hybrid Europeans start altering records and calling themselves white people. That's where that began, from a legal, political perspective. And the people need to know that the problems that they're faced with right now is that stuff has to be cleaned up. The same way the indigenous people got to be cleaned up and brought back out of the black code system created by these very same people. So black is a code system to denationalize. It has nothing to do with identity whatsoever. Likewise, the Negro Act. Likewise, the Buck Act. And all those rest of those artificial, under color of law activities that were constructed to disengage the people socially, politically, and mentally from their land. It can get really interesting, you all. But just gave you some keys. Do the research and watch their arguments fall apart on multiple levels. And again, then you understand, Dr. G, why they always coach these people at Ellis Island when they come in, and it confuses our people here when they're looking at them coming from the other side, Africa, and they're talking about us as like a separate people, like we don't communicate with them, because they're told not to, because they would not have been allowed to come onto the land. Why? Because they know that we're the people of the land, and they know that we as a collective don't know that. We don't even know ourselves. And then we submit to the black codes and to the Bureau of Indian Affairs out of ignorance and fear and misinformation and miseducation. That's why we're isolated. How do you say? There's a veil, and yet we're standing next to each other. That's the veil. The veil is misclassification, misinformation, and personation by a lot of people, including the people who are claiming to be government, are personating. And, like people would be looking at the subtleties of how we think about each other and not know that, and this is, like you said, the distraction. What is the distraction? That you don't examine Ulysses Grant, 1870, the Naturalization Act. Because isn't it logical, if you have an immigration problem, that the law already exists to deal with that?
What year was it that the immigrants went from, they became immigrants from the United States, from America to West Africa? Was that after that 1870?
No, you're talking about Bilbo.
Okay.
Bilbo, what, with Liberia?
Liberia, Monrovia.
That's right. That's why they call it now under Monroe.
Under Monroe.
See, all of that is connected. And so they named it after the corporate Satanist president for the corporation. That's why the capital of Liberia is called Monrovia.
Monrovia, yeah. And Liberia is supposed to be their liberty, their free. They thought they were becoming free because they were said that way.
Now,
and they gave us the reverse story.
This is the whole deal. Many of the people there had problems over the years, where the brothers and the sisters on that side was telling them, y'all left home.
Yeah.
It's not, we're not rejecting you, but y'all left home. They were creating an artificial narrative to claim the land here, claiming that we've abandoned it. As a matter of fact, 92, 93, the ambassador of the brother of the ambassador of Liberia used to call me weekly. 92, 93 in that area. You know, and it opens up a can of worms, Dr. G. These things are not unknown. But I want to say this much and make this very clear. And we're only hitting on a little bit of it.
Yeah, we went off subject, but it's important.
That's the point. It's not off subject.
But I'm saying kind of where we were going, but I'm saying this is important.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
When spirit takes you us another way, it has to be said.
It opens up a can of worms. It opens up a can of political intrigue, things that you wouldn't even think of in the conversation. You would think we're going off track. And all you did was pull the cover. It's like pulling up a rock, say we're fishing. And you pull up a rock, and we do what we do in fishing. What do you do? You pull up shrubs and rocks to look for earthworms, right? So we're looking for earthworms, and you pull up a rock, you start finding moles and little baby snakes and eggs. Unexpected. It's the same thing. Things that seem to be one thing, when you pull that veil, you find that there's a parallel world going on,
right,
that you didn't suspect. And I'm telling you, an actual reality. The actual reality. When these people, and particularly these people of the land who've been religiously attaching themselves to the Christian black codes, thinking it's identity, and who've been religiously attaching the hybrid Europeans to the free white person status, and then seeking to conjoin with them, not knowing that they traded political places with you. That's why they don't talk about the Naturalization Act. That's why they won't use it to solve the so-called border problem, because they can't without exposing themselves. And it's not that the people here would necessarily expose it, because scholars know it, politicians know it, but the general masses don't know it.
Right.
Their fear is that other nations know it. And so they don't let people come here unless they agree to alienate themselves from us, because they all know who we are. The problem is we don't know who we are, just like they said. And our people will take it as a slight when they're actually telling the truth.
Right, right.
Because remember, the issue is, if a man in organized society honors not their mothers and fathers, they're to be rejected. That's what that is. But it also has a political side, because the hybrid Europeans have instructed them not to mingle with us. Why? Because information slips out.
What about the fact that there seems to be an ongoing business operative in West Africa for us to go over, and they have a whole, we've been washing your clothes, waiting for you. People pilgrimage, they still are separating us from the land, and they know that these people come from America, reality. But they're getting all of this fun.
This is the reality. This is the reality. They know that we're going to have to be reoriented. However, they know as long as the hybrids rule here and have political jurisdiction, that it would not be allowed to happen. The welcoming is not for you to leave your state, is to get reoriented, and then they send you back.
Oh, I mean,
because
I had a big family, a group of my kinfolk who just went over on this great big spiritual pilgrimage home. But they left home. They don't realize they left home.
They always tell that same paradox for any of you who are a little older out there that have any experience in the Nation of Islam. right, in the history, meaning that actual experience in the Nation of Islam, right, and who have actually participated and interfaced with many of the persons who are looked at historically as leaders within that venue, who know some of the real history of what occurred with Il-Hajj, who you know in history as Malcolm X. That's one of the things they told him. And he started 2 organizations, but they made sure he didn't activate them when he came back on the land here, didn't they? And it wasn't just hybrid Europeans that interfered. Why? They told him, brother, don't come here with that black, white slave language. Brother, Maghreb, that they tell you is evening salat. Well, yes, it is. But Maghreb is North America. Morocco, the most extreme west. You left home, brother. When you start digging into the real geopolitical history and intrigue and the Naturalization Act, you're going to find stuff that you don't expect to be looked. In other words, the whole conversation changes. Most of the stuff our people be talking about is emotional concepts of what they told racism is and all this stuff. They're going to find the real deep geopolitical intrigue that's held back from these people of the land here, and everybody around the world knows it but us. Dorothy. Yeah. Yes. It's stuff, it gets real ugly. And that's their great fear. And a lot of people who get caught in these conversations start talking, they fear your colors. No, they don't. They fear that not only the wizard, which is the warlocks who've been operating this thing, are exposed. Now, you see in the Wizard of Oz now, do you understand in the signal why they use the flying anthropoids? What are the flying anthropoids? Flying monkeys. They're telling you. Negro ya vera arrebo. Troglodyte nigger. That's what it is. Look in the dictionary, look up troglodyte in your older dictionaries and watch what it tells you.
It's like what we used to say is like cavemen and
that's what a paleolith is. Means caveman. That's why the Aboriginal people refer to them as paleface. Not pale in complexion, but paleolith. It wasn't a slander. Because they're heterogeneous hybrids. That's why people who really know the geopolitics sometimes refer to them as hybrids, just simply hybrids.
Hybrid Europeans and
well, because that's the truth. It's not a slur. It's the truth. Mm-hmm. Human history has been modified in books, but the reality is once you know the geopolitics, the veil is pulled, and you recognize that these people have been operating in a parallel world for a couple of centuries, and you've been the food. The conversation is to remove us as the food source. That's all. Both political and actual physical, because we've been farmed. It's an uncomfortable truth, but it's still the truth. This, what appears to be surface conversation, you peel that onion, see what happened.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So,
Now, so nationality, and it's uncomfortable, but nationality is the order of the day. So, Prophet Noble Ali always told us that, and he also said, nationality card going to change in your pocket. That means your concepts about even what you think it is deeper than you think it is. That's why he said half has not been told. If he told you everything, you go back to sleep. Why? Because the shock would be so impactful. Really. So not only is in law, but in mind and in spirit. And if you don't know who you are, you can get swept away in the reconstruction operations of 1854 to 1860, etc. So whether you're in a prison cell of a building or prison cell of society, your very operations, just like when they're sitting at that table, they were in a prison. Prison don't always mean bars. They're in a social engineered prison, and it confused them because they're looking at the complexion of their brothers and sisters from the other side, if you get the point. And they're looking at it the way it's socially, politically projected, but it ain't what they're looking at. Do the research on the Naturalization Act, Whittemore Party Convention, 1854, Horace Greeley, etc., and you'll look at this stuff totally different. Then you'll also look at even that movie that Eddie Murphy made in Philadelphia, why it was made in Philadelphia, and why it's called Trading Places, and why they have him on a dolly, appearing like he has no legs, no foundation. All of that is signals. So the prison cell or in a corporate boardroom. And so one of the things that you must look at to clear your head about those who are operating, making those determinations, and given the appearance that they had the power to bestow white on someone, which they don't, because they can't be free white people. If you want to understand even their political structure, study the Clearfield Doctrine. And those operations here you recognize are usufruct. And it's a principle of trust. And if you don't assert your status, your lawful, proper status, and make reclamation on your own estate, the corporate state of the corporate operatives will administer it for you, which is what they've been doing. And it's called hypothecation. And they will harvest your energy, which they've been doing in the process, which is what they've been doing. And that is why distractions are so valuable to them. It's a weapon. It's a social, political weapon. It doesn't mean they don't like you personally. It's a political structure that serves political ends, etc. And so that's why distractions are so valuable to them as a social engineering tool. And the longer you argue over, their designed or projected celebrity gossip, the less time you have to study yourself, your pedigree, your birthright, your real geopolitical history, your tie to the land, and your trust, and the Constitution for the United States that is derived from the Honesty Confederation of Moors. That stuff belonged to you. You just didn't know it. And the hybrid Europeans administering your estate while you're watching TikTok, thinking you know what's going on. They're distracting you. Doesn't mean that that stuff's not of interest, but they're distracting you. And that's why Noble Drawley said, man will regain his lost estate, his heritage, but he must do it in a conflict that cannot be told in words. And that conflict is internal, waking up from distractions, reclaiming your attention, and reasserting your status, your proper status. So what do you have to say about that, Dr. J?
Well, you said a lot, but
I want a peanut butter sandwich. Go ahead.
You sound like somebody else. But that brings us to the new priesthood. Yeah. You know, the algorithm. Algorithm. Like we deal with algorithm. We don't know it, but we know there's something called the algorithm. You know, the priesthood is mysterious, and now we have the new one, which is the algorithm. Because if you don't watch the nightly news, the algorithm is deciding, what you see and what you hear, and what you think, as well as TikTok and YouTube and Instagram. The feed is in the program. It's the program. They feed us all of this information, and some of us deal with information overload. You could, sometimes you have to take time away from this stuff, not turn the stuff on, and it doesn't guess what you like. It decides.
How do you make this why the overload from a tool, from a social engineering tool?
I mean,
overload information, knowing if the people don't know certain primal important pieces of information that causes the distraction is called flooding. You know how you say flooding, Noah, Webster, flood, Noah. Go ahead, continue.
Okay, all right.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Well, in terms of algorithms now, whatever they're doing digitally and with AI and so forth, it doesn't just guess what you like. It decides what you like. It makes you forget what you don't like, and you start to want and desire things that it keeps putting in front of you. Before you know me, you'd say, I'm not going to get on my cell phone first thing in the morning, and all you got to do is get a call or something. Now you picked up the phone. Now you're scrolling through. Now you got pop-ups and all kinds of stuff popping up in your face, trying to get you to look at this. It's listening to your conversations, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that. I mean, we're under so much surveillance and so forth that and so we get like I said, the gossip, the fear, the videos, so many things that are coming our way, all designed to lower our vibration, lowering our vibration while siphoning our energy, really, because when your vibration is low, you're easy to control, you're easy to govern, and
you're subject to multiple influence. What they refer to for the last 100 some odd years is called MK Ultra.
So really, it's just that you got to get to a place where you put up your own veil, not the veil that they put up to hide stuff from you, but you're going to have to veil yourself
to protect
yourself from what's being
problematic is, and this is back to what's implied earlier, Dr. G. If you don't know some of the real geopolitics, you don't know how to counter them, because they're they're the only allowed source of information. And keep in mind, this is why they set up the war War Department set up the Board of Education in 1902. That's so most people don't know that the John D. Rockefeller, Frederick T. Gates operations of 1902 with the General Education Board was a War Department activity. They think it had something to do with what they've been told is improving education. That was coming from the War Department.
Wow.
And they have stock in it. So in ancient times, the priesthood, they use chants, they use rituals and incantations to keep the masses entranced.
Wow.
And now today, they use algorithms, trending sounds, and dopamine hits.
Now, Grant, she goes to say this, though. You do look at a lot of, you can binge.
I do.
You binge YouTube.
I do.
Yeah, because
No, I always do.
Okay. All right.
No, I always do. I be looking at them casting spells.
Okay.
And in my mind, thinking how to counter. Because I know that people don't know how to look at things. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like, the issue of studying your enemy?
And Art of War.
That's why there's certain, you'll see me looking at it, I'll look at them, but I'll look at a certain line of things. What you'll see me looking at is geopolitical stuff, international stuff, things coming from the venues of the commander-in-chief operating out of the seat of the president. That's what I'll be binging. Because I'll be reading between the lines. I'll be looking at projections that they're making. And most of the time, I don't even have to see the whole thing. Soon as I pick up the spirit, I can read them front to back ahead of time. Because most of what they're doing, I can see it anyway. I don't need to really kind of look at them like that. But it's an affirmation of their intent, if you get the point. And it's like this. Most of the people, this is what they'll do. They'll mix what you will call political content, right, within the algorithms with other minutia, and those who know what to look at knows how to pick through it. and others fall for the distractions. But yet, subconsciously, certain political messages are always being sent by the day. Everything they send ain't trash.
That's true.
But people don't know how to separate or to discern because their concepts about what they're looking at are incorrect by design. It has nothing to do with personal or personality. It has to do with you. It's sort of like if a person has a general knowledge of geology and of stones and crystals, they can go in the field and find valuable stones where other people can walk on stuff in their driveway for years and not know the difference. Same thing. The deal of it is knowing that their total operations involve controlling humanity for the injury of humanity. It is logical that if you know or you're grounded in what you call more erudite geopolitical structures, you know how to separate the stuff. But they also tell you what they're going to do. So when you see me scrolling, if you pay attention to what I'll be looking at, I'll be going through geopolitical activities.
Absolutely.
I don't spend a lot of time dealing with the gossip minutia. It'll come on, I'll glance at it, but my major focus will be on the geopolitical activities. That's where I put most of my energy.
Well, shout out to King Simon. He's in the building.
King Simon. Look, all right, good brother.
I picked up one of his books. I was like, I see him under there. Yeah, love this. Numbers are simple. People are complicated.
Yes.
That's the problem. We need to get into, numerology and figure out
that's
who we
part
are.
of the culture.
Yeah,
that's part of the culture. And because keep in mind, they use it. It's just that it's like they can use
gematria and all that stuff. They
use the people's stuff against them because the people don't know their own stuff. The power is not that they're wiser. The power is that they got us dealing with stupid minutia, and we don't know how to pick through stuff.
Right.
But they put it all out there.
And I found, Grand Sheik, almost everything that, particularly in Christianity, that we were told to stay away from, avoid, we should be doing just the opposite. It was because it was to keep us from our own innate knowledge, abilities, giftings, anointings, whatever you want to call it. Now, I exercise that stuff. I exercise my intuitive self. I try to keep my empathic self at bay because I'm taking on a lot of stuff for other people. But I use my crystals. I use pendulums and I do it. And it's effective and accurate, but we were always told that stuff is demonic. That stuff is because everything they told us not to do, we ought to really
now. But you already know. Remember, when people don't know the culture, the hybrid Europeans takes your own culture, misrepresents it, and then present it to you, and you take it that they're attacking you, and then reject it. It's not that all the time that they're lying. A lot of times they're telling you truth, but they know that if you're not really in tune, that you won't pick up. This is what they'll do. They'll throw you placebo, distraction, placebo, a truth, codified, a distraction, a placebo, a lie, a distraction, a placebo, a lie, a truth coded. That's how they do it. And what happens is if you get in the habit, which they train you to do, to throw the baby out with the bathwater, you don't pay attention to details. Or you get, some people get self-righteous, thinking that they know and don't pay attention to details, and they get you. And then in the future, when you look back, they can tell you, oh, we just called, you followed. You can't say that we didn't tell you. No different than they use movies to tell these people that the Aboriginal people of this land are Phoenician, that they're Moors. They said it in multiple movies.
Oh yeah, what was it? What was that movie with what's his name? The one that
Morgan Freeman, Robin Hood. Sidney Poitier, The Bell, something like that, the movie.
It's a guy
Martin Lawrence,
Martin Lawrence,
Black Knight.
Black Knight, yeah.
Will Smith, Wild Wild West. Anthony Hopkins, True Romance. On and 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 on. Even Obama, when he was roasting him, telling these people about their oldest running treaty. You know, so he's giving you the geopolitics. They give you keys all the time. But what happens is, if you don't take your time to do research to separate the BS and the distraction from the reality, then if you don't have a geopolitical background, you dismiss things because you misplace them in your mind. The same way with the geography. If the concept that every time they say Paris, you're thinking in Europe and not actually in South area here in the South, in the Georgia, Kentucky area, or if you say Memphis, they're thinking always in Egypt on that side. You're never thinking about Tennessee, which we call Tennessee. It's Tennessee, right? And so you don't make that connection. So you don't think about the chambers beneath Tennessee. You be thinking that every chamber that you see, those ancient Hikupta or Egypt, you think all them pictures is always on the other side. A lot of them are over on this side, always have been. They'll tell you, they'll relate anything that looks like that on the other side, and the reality is they're on both sides, including where was your world's largest pyramid? And immediately people start talking about Egypt and everything, right? And Sudan, right?
Right.
World scholars knows is Mexico. They just tore it down and built cities with it. Period of the sun. You know, everything they do is to mentally disconnect the Aboriginal people from the land. And out of ignorance and misguidance, we help it along. You know, so like as you were saying earlier, Dr. G, about when they were sitting at the table with the brothers and sisters, and they were rejecting, why are you sitting over there with them? Because they were instructed to do that. And these people, out of ignorance and emotionalism, you know, we look at it at that, they're rejecting their own brothers because they don't want to be black, because they ain't black. Oh, they trying to act like they're white, because they are. And they know it doesn't make sense to even argue with these people because they don't even know themselves. So what do? You keep talking to them, and then they want to fight. Right? Meanwhile, these same people know that all the so-called leader guys, and I won't name any of them, that's put in front of these people in secret are Masons and got a Moorish fez. And where their Moorish fezzes, and that includes the women, the congressmen and the congresswomen, and the council people, because they know that no one's in the governing structure at North America, whether you're dealing with Canada or the Union State Society, that all of them in secret got a Moorish fez, whether they're Eastern Stars or Masons, Prince Hall or otherwise. Now, when they're public, they're just so that the people don't catch on, they'll call them tiaras. They'll call them tiara rather than tell you it's a fez. That's why people come here from the other side, you know, kind of disrespect us, because we always acting like we so damn spiritual and don't even know our own pedigree, even when stuff is in our head. And then we start justifying it when the truth is revealed by, instead of just admitting that we're wrong, we'll say, well, it's so-called, you know, what it means is it's the darkest, you know, it's so melanated. No, these are Moors. We keep dancing around the truth, which means we're not willing to accept the truth. Now, in law, the issue operates like this in status law. If a man or woman aren't willing to confess their own, you don't confess it for them, which means anyone claiming to be black has no rights that any white man on the planet has any obligation to respect. That means they can take mercy on you, but they're not obligated to respect you when you don't respect yourself, because the respect given to humans on this planet is called honor your mothers and your fathers, and they have pedigree names. And these ancient ones of the North Gate are descendants from the ancient Moabite Canaanites. Collectively, they are known by the world as Al-Moroccans, which means descendants of Moroccans or Americans, and collectively, in short, Moors. That's a fact. In all your treaties, etc. So black people didn't produce damn thing. Moors did. Get over it. And their position is, if you're not willing to honor your own pedigree and bloodline, they have no obligation to honor you. But we demand them to respect us when we don't respect ourselves. Now, that's the real truth. Now, I'm not defending, the arrogance or anything like that, but you need to know where it's coming from. Anyone who comes to the shores or through Ellis Island are not allowed on the land until they're orientated. And their orientation is to the Whiggamore training operations of the Whiggamore Party of 1854, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You're not to acknowledge the Aboriginal people, period. And that's the truth. And so they've always made lies. Say they got monkey tails, they eat cow poo for burgers and any kind of thing that makes the people disparaged. And then our people are trained here under the Carlos Linnaeus and Johann von Blumenbach mind control pseudo race paradigm to this is the MK Ultra. Immediately start talking race, not even know that the species is the race. And soon as they know we're going to go there because they know the monkey training falls in place. Then these people got 5 degrees on the wall and talking about they black. And then when someone corrects them, well, it's so-called black. It's just the melanated darkness of the universe. And civilized people have no respect for that bullshit. And the deal is we need to stop it. And really, it's not unknown. This is the whole issue. This stuff is parallel. Right behind the curtain, people come here from all over the world, knows that they're visiting the Maghreb. And the people of the Maghreb don't know they're standing on the Maghreb. Then the people of the Maghreb keep calling the hybrid Europeans the Americans. And their corporation, America. Their corporation is not America. Their corporation is the United States Corporation Trading Company, registered in Florida, run from the Fleet Street, England, by the Circle Church and Chancery, known as the Bar Association, British Accredited Registry, with the judicial system governed from England to this very day. There are no lawful courts operating on the land at North America. That's a fact. Why do these people keep pretending that they don't know? They keep claiming all this scholarship and tell you about the gods of here and the gods of there and the different tribes here and don't even know that the entire judicial system is run from Fleet Street, England. That's a fact. Everybody knows it, but us. The problem is, one of the problems is, it is known by the so-called leadership among our people too, but most of them are compromised. Because most of them are incorporated to the corporation. That's why. Then they use the 501c3 Skull and Bones Agreement from Lyndon Baines Johnson to not talk geopolitics. That's why they always let these same people in all their clubs and churches and everything to speak to the cattle. And yet they won't talk real geopolitics. They talk around it. And all of them know everything that I just said about the Naturalization Act, the murder of Lincoln, one of the motives as to why, and Horace Greeley, and 1870.
And that's why I love Dr. Kia Pruitt.
Yeah, Dr. Kia Pruitt tells like it is.
Yeah, she delves into the geopolitics. They took the video off when she was on it last time because she was talking geopolitics.
No, because that's it.
Truth.
And any of you that's listened to any of Dr. Pruitt's videos, the general conversations that you see Dr. Pruitt having is the general knowledge that all of these so-called marching Negro civil rights guys who are put to the people are Masons and Eastern Stars. They got that same knowledge, but they'll talk emotionally about who they like, and they don't like the Orange Man, and whether they like the Bar Association shill that was put up named Kamala, and that's not personal to her, to distract the people. And she's far more intelligent than what she pretended to be when they were knowing that it was set up. They were playing to the people's emotion, playing gender games with these people and seeing how they respond. If anybody had an open conversation with Kamala Harris, or even watched a off the record conversation with her book, she's extremely intelligent. Extremely intelligent. But yet, when they was having that debate, every second word she was laughing and grinning and would not answer a cohesive question, which means that she was put up. In other words, they played her, and disrespectfully. But the deal of it is she cooperated. Now, the motive, I'm not even arguing that. I'm just saying what I know. She's an extremely intelligent woman, and the image that they made her, I think it kind of burned her ego a little bit when she started recognizing how they clowned her after the fact, because she already knows what they presented in those debates was not really her.
Yeah.
These people need to stop playing, but it doesn't matter because all their institutions are collapsing now anyway. So there, you deal with that parallel.
It's interesting.
Now, so in ancient times, the trance chants they would use to dominate the people, etc., casting spells. So let me tell you this, and this is why war talk keeps showing up in your feed to distract you. World War III, etc. World War III started right after World War II. And it continues today. They just changed the name. It's called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, Rex 84 and King Alfred, Executive Order number 11490 against the Aboriginal Indigenous people. It continued. And so now they're distracting you with this war with Russia, with China, and they're telling you that China is about to invade. Why don't they tell you about the gold that China sent over here for us in 1954 that they stole? And then they stole. United States corporation operatives stole it under the Eisenhower administration. Then they started that fake 14th Amendment marching paradigm that you know as a civil rights movement. So they want to talk about China. Why don't they talk about all the gold that China sent here for us, the Aboriginals of the land, to help us, and they stole it? Why don't they tell you that? Well, I'm telling you they did. So y'all need to look at the relinquishing of jurisdiction at Morocco in the congressional records, the Dwight D. Eisenhower administration. But they won't tell you about that stolen gold, will they? Because they want these people to think that China's our enemy. China ain't our enemy. They're your extended family. Now, so anyway, the Middle East, which is really West Asia, the Middle East is West Asia. Get your geography correct too while you're at it. It's about to explode. That's because the BS ain't being accepted, because the nations of the world know that if they don't unite, the hybrids are taking them down one by one. So you better look at the Balfour Agreement, etc. and the fakery they created after that. That's at the base of all that stuff with the Satanists. Anyway, so always pretending that war is always at the brink. Why? Because creating fear is profitable for them. Fear justifies military activities, military spending, military disruption. In other words, they create the problem and then rob the people with a promise to fix the problem. Then they expand on the problem. And so fear is used to justify more control. And that artificial fear created by the owners of the United States Corporation Company, etc. And y'all need to look up the last registration of the United States Corporation Company, because there's 3 owners and they all happen to be calling themselves something that they're not. And people think it's a country. So it keeps you from recognizing that the real war is already here. It's been here and just simply never ended. It's just been continuing, and they keep changing the name after generations. People think it's new stuff. So the economic, social, political, land, and human trafficking war. That's what it is. And so the war is against yourself, your biology, your genealogy, and against your pocket, against your pantry, and against your natural right of self-power, and against all labors. Yield floor on that one, Dr. G.
Well, you know, people are saying, I can't afford gas. They can't afford rent. I'm gonna say they, because I'm not gonna make that confession, but you know, insurance is killing them.
Can I interject something right there?
Sure.
I bet you that area that they created, right, after the Balfour Agreement and stuff, I bet you they can afford it. I bet you they can afford new planes, new cars, new jets, new yachts, bank accounts with multiple zeros, whether they're on that side or in Brooklyn, and all of it stolen from you. I bet you they not thinking about gas.
I saw a
you better wake up
TikTok video on YouTube. It was a reaction video, and it was just a whole succession of Europeans, modern Europeans, complaining about that. There were no melanated people in the video, and they were all crying about the cost of, you know, like I said, gas and food and insurance and so forth. And you know, people, while they venting about it on TikTok and YouTube, they don't really connect it, I don't think, you know,
yes, they do.
Well, to the deeper reality, deeper reality that this just isn't just
in the public.
It isn't just inflation. This is a collapse of the fiat system itself that you've been talking about, that was coming, you know, almost ever since I've known you, you know, which is now almost 14 years. So, you know, we discussed this on our last broadcast. What most people call the dollar is not a dollar. It's Federal Reserve note. It's a debt instrument. It's what, you know, it's why it loses value every year. I mean, I was just told by my natural hairstylist that her prices were going up like 30 notes. I was like, okay. But I you know, after I took my deep breath, I'm thinking, okay, so everybody's on this at some level. Everybody's affected. So what they used to purchase for, you know, this amount now is taking this amount, and they getting that amount, and so they passing everything down to people.
Now, amount implies measure, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, when you think about measure, I think in terms of when I was growing up, I believe loaf of bread may have been 30 cents or something like that, and it was, you know, nice size, and now it's like $3 to $4, and it's like this size. So the amounts have changed, the prices, but the value to me has not changed. Matter of fact, the value a lot of times has decreased.
The trick of the spell and the difficulty of analysis constantly,
right,
goes very simple to this. Use common sense. Let's take a child. Difficult. See, we've been trained to adopt hypocrisy as a part of justification in the culture. This is one of the reasons why people can't count. Not because they're really dumb. It's because we don't know that we've adopted a spell. Let's make this common sense. Look, how many bits bits, B-I-T, are in a coin? Write that down and answer that question. How much does a Bitcoin weigh?
It's the value.
Compare that to a dollar. How much does a dollar weigh? How many parts or bits of alloy make that coin? Because a dollar is a coin. Every time you say dollar, you're saying coin. As long as we keep on referring to digital currency operations as the dollar, it stays confusing because we're lying every step of the way. We must stop calling the counterfeit dollar as if it has any measurable value. That's why it can fluctuate, because it has no breadth, it has no depth, it has no width, it has no measure, it has no weight. Therefore, by the day, by the minute, they can tell you anything, and it counts because it can't be counted, because it's not a dollar. It's counterfeit. It's counterfeit vouchers, systems, instruments that have no value. They have political fiat claims leaned on it. That's why it fluctuates from day to day, because it's not a dollar. It's not to be measured against the dollar. And as long as they can keep us analyzing or trying to analyze it as a dollar or an amount, they know that we're still under the spell, and they continue to run this false government parallel to reality. That veil must be broken, starting with stop calling the fiat, because fiat is not even the instrument. Fiat is the artificial claim of authority giving it value. That's the fiat. The classification is fiat. The instrumentality is private commercial paper, counterfeit, with a number on it that changes like shape-shifting in your face. That's why it appears to change by the day. Yeah. And now the whole world knows it. You need to know it here. And so the nations are rejecting the private commercial paper of the Federal Reserve, which belongs to the Vatican. It's an order. The Federal Reserve belongs to the Vatican. Get it through your head. Their instrumentalities are not a dollar. They keep throwing that word out there to cast a spell for you to keep lying and saying you're dealing with dollars. You're not dealing with dollars. You're dealing with private commercial paper regulated from the Circle Church and Chantry, British Accredited Registry, Fleet Street, England, directed to Washington, District of the Roman Goddess Columbia, and then distributed under color of law and color of operations to the state of subdivisional corporations, not the organic land, all personating. That's why it fluctuates, because it can hold no value. It has no value. It has political operational jurisdiction. It has nothing to do with money. It has to do with trafficking. Stop calling it a dollar. It's not a dollar. Dollar is a gold or silver coin by weights and measure. Look it up, children. Jeez. This is why the BRICS nations are trading outside of it. So Africa is rejecting it. Remember, the only reason why it operated before is because of colonial imposition, not because they didn't know what it was. They know what it was. So even the United States Corporation Company, their allies are cutting deals without it. Why? Because they're collapsing. In other words, everybody that helped maintain the fraud, the chickens are coming home to roost, like Il Malik said. That's what's happening. Pardon me. So they're cutting deals without it. And so the petrodollar, which is another fraud, it simply means that they use oil to measure or to translate or to impose upon other countries to accept their counterfeit. Their counterfeit private commercial paper was tagged to the dollar certificate redemption instrument that is tagged to the dollar. The commercial paper has nothing to do with the dollar whatsoever, except that them convince you to keep on calling it a dollar. And as long as you keep calling it a dollar, the spell continues. Not a dollar. And so even their allies are now cutting deals without it. And they call it a petrodollar. Even that's a lie. Because a dollar is a gold coin. So is it an oil dollar? Is a dollar made of oil, or is a dollar made of gold or silver coin? You know, that people they are so contemptuous of humanity that they lie to your face and then start getting you to lie too. So it's losing its grip because it's a grip. It's not a value. It never was a value. It's for bookkeeping purposes only, always was. And when the artificial personating operatives that comprise the so-called empire loses its reserve currency power over other nations, the illusion dies. And the veil is lifted between the parallel illusion and reality. And so therefore it loses its throne, which is an illusion. That's why the throne is always maintained by military. It's always maintained by military. It has no other standing, never did. And that's why we're watching this dismantling in real time. See, because until the people's mind change, the power structure doesn't change. Because the people themselves, the essence of the people, is used metaphysically to empower the Satanist. In other words, he has no power except what we keep giving him. Then we keep claiming his private commercial paper as the dollar, and then we do what? Enslave our own children. We need to stop lying. This is, if you pay attention to, and that's why, again, you need to look at the Clearfield doctrine. Because the presenters for the Clearfield case for that bank who was being sued by the United States operatives for a so-called $24 forged check. You know, when they do the report on that law case, they were carefully wording it, but what they're telling you is that the United States corporation has no lawful authority to talk shit to nobody. You might do it to these dumb Negroes who think they Negroes and blacks, which this stuff was designed for, but you ain't getting it off on us. Because it's like Macy's trying to argue with Sears, trying to tell them what they can sell or not. That's what the Clearfield doctrine is technically saying. That's like somebody coming from behind McDonald's, running across the street at Wendy's and telling them they can't sell burgers. And then the dumb public think that McDonald's is their government, and they've been funding them. And then they've been sending goons out collecting taxes from them. That's exactly what the Clearfield doctrine is saying. So I tell people, study the Clearfield doctrine, because for some reason these people can't get it through their heads that they're not dealing with dollars. And then they keep letting these people tell them talking dollars. You're not talking dollars. You're talking human trafficking, bookkeeping with counterfeit instrumentalities that are liens, counterfeit against the gold and silver certificates, which were removed from public venue, which attach to the dollar. And anything outside of that you call dollar, you're recasting the spell and enslaving your own children and people. Stop calling it a dollar. It's not a dollar. It's private commercial paper or Federal Reserve note. Call it what it is. Stop lying. You know, you can't break. See, the deal is people need to take responsibility that it ain't just a hybrid European that has been contaminating the world. We've been helping them along the way by continuing or adopting their lie. This is why when people get into these IRS cases where the IRS comes up, that's why they lose, because they start talking about dollar and money. And nothing has to do with either one. Anyway, I use the floor again, Doctor.
Well, I know we're coming to the end, but that's why I was talking to you, I was reminding you that, you know, I can literally live in a parallel timeline, because I can go days, we're going back to what we're watching and what we're absorbing. You know, I can go days without watching TV or without scrolling on, you know, TikTok or the YouTube or whatever. And I'm at peace. Actually, I don't even know what's going on. I feel clear. I feel focused. And the minute you turn, you know, that on, then you're flooded with stuff that, you know, like we talked about earlier, you're bombarded with fear and with scandals and wars and distractions. And you can feel the difference. I can feel the difference, you know, in how I feel in my spirit. And that's how you know that it's deliberate. Because before I heard it, you hear this stuff, you're unaffected. But once it enters your mind, especially with me, it tries to plant anxiety. You know, it tries to plant confusion. And that's when I realized that you can dwell in another world if you don't get caught up in theirs.
You got to stop the lie.
Right.
See?
So you got to, you know, when I had my wake up, when I had my awakening experience, that, you know, when I was Apostle Gilliam and I was at that prayer breakfast, when I came out of that place where I had been for I don't know how long, while sitting there at the table, the voice in my head, in me, you know, I saw some people talking about where's God and so forth. I'm convinced I know where God is. But anyway, the voice said to me, you must stop lying and tell the truth. You know, when I heard that, I knew I wasn't, you know, lying by commission. I wasn't committing deliberate lies. But a lot of what I ended up learning is that I was lying by omission, because I had not allowed myself to fully learn the truth. I was being indoctrinated from the book called the Bible, and it had tainted. It had actually stunted. I don't want to say tainted. It stunted my spiritual growth. You know, you think that you get more spiritual.
It was the versions presented.
Well, the version, but the version I had, you know, and the word said to me, you must stop lying. You must tell the truth. And then later on, it said to me, I said to me, you must reawaken minds. That's how House of Reawakening Minds, you know,
as it rise,
had its beginnings, because, you know, God in me spoke to itself and woke it up to the point where I couldn't even do what I was doing before. And like I said, we say that I've said it so many times in preaching, you know, we in the world, but not of it. So it has a different meaning when you come into this truth, this knowledge.
Because truth is the value pushing away lies.
Right. So when
gold is the value, and silver pushing away the fiat.
Right. But what I'm saying to you is we had been learning things, or indoctrinated. I was. And not only that, I was indoctrinating others, because as a pastor, apostle, I was a good teacher. But when I realized I was teaching dogma and tried to undo it, you know, the first thing I tried to undo was tithing. And what tithing really was. Well, they, you know, folks would barely sometimes pay their electric and gas, but they were running there, because the scripture would say, bring me all the tithes into the storehouse, and they be meeting my house, and prove me now herewith that I'm open to you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing. So they thought they were going to get more by giving what they didn't even have. And I got to the point, I was like, you know, then they come back to the church and want to try to get help for the church. And I said, you've been better off keeping it in your pocket before you gave it. Because you know, you don't give what you don't have. You family, and you come first. And I when I started to stand on things like that in a brief time, I didn't have a lot of time to give them this truth, because before, and I opened my mouth and it was different than what I had been preaching for 10 years, they were shocked because I had indoctrinated them.
Yes.
You see what I mean? And it's hurtful when you realize you did that to people. And now when you come into the truth, you can't even put the truth in because you put too many lies in.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I had to hear someone said to me, there are people looking for you. I said, nobody looking for me. And there were other folks, there were you all looking for the House of Reawakening Minds to come to life, you know, and it was me needing to meet Sister Zodiacus L, who introduced me to Grand Sheikh Taj Tarik Bey, and then she went off scene. She transitioned because that was the end of her mission. She told me that, you know, I didn't know she was leaving like that, but she said, you know, I'm not coming back no more. I'm finished this. And I had to meet this man, and not that he wasn't already known to many of you, but you became more known, even more known, more widespread, because you know, somebody has to listen to the truth. Somebody has to walk in a place where, you know, you're shielded from the lies so that you can get the truth and then give that out. You see what I mean? So, you know, I realized that you can be in the world, but not of the world.
That's what it really means. Because what it really means, so the world does not mean the earth.
True.
Itself.
It's a state.
It is the political structure. It's called the nth. It has more to do with the anthropological operations on the land, not with the organic people. You know, and this is back to why they don't teach anthropology, geology, geography. You understand? In etymology. Orthology, you know, ontology, all of these has to do with both structure on the land and then operations on the land separate from land itself.
Right.
Then social structure with the beings on the land.
Right.
Then organization with the beings on the land, anthropology. Now you're dealing with nations.
Right.
Then you deal with jurisdictions within those venues, etc.
Right. But you know where your attention goes, like we said earlier, is where your energy flows. And if you refuse to feed their circus, then you get to live outside of it. So that's what it means, again, to me, to live and be in this world or in the world, but not of it. You know, really.
And that's a jewel that you're presenting, even in that presentment, Dr. J. Being in the world, but not of it, is not just a spiritual saying. It's actually a geopolitical saying. It's really a geopolitical instruction, actual, right? Yeah. It's a state of being. So, and is a jurisdiction of the mind operating on the land, even next to another, and a next to another. That's that. So now you have people that can be standing next to each other, no different than people sitting at the table. Yet politically, they were two different jurisdictions.
And what is that scripture that say two would be working to get grinding together in the field? Two women, one would be taken and one would be left.
It's showing you. That's giving you allegories to show you jurisdiction.
Absolutely.
It's demonstrating jurisdiction, right? So it's giving. In a way where a child could understand it, if you get the point. But that's a demonstration of jurisdiction. That is not always distance. It's not always places. Foreign does not always mean distance. Foreign means jurisdiction. Foreign means concept opposites, etc. Honor opposites. Truth and lie. On the same table. A gold coin, which is part of the conversation. A coin, an actual coin, no matter what it is, word coin, on the table. And then somebody come here and say, oh, here's a Bitcoin on the table. And you say, well, where's it at? Well, it's in your imagination. It's there. And you say, well, I'm looking. I know you dropped this coin. But I've been looking for that Bitcoin that you said you had. Well, it changed value. You mean the shapeshift? Yes, that's where it works. And it's more than dollars in this. And the fact that people even fell for that, and that they're actually having intelligent conversations about an absolute abstract that fluctuate, which means a shape shifting, goes up and down in value every day, and people will give up their physical gold for it. And it is the most obvious contemptuous lie of modern day. Doesn't mean it doesn't have a function. It has a function because people believe. It shows you the power of belief that they'll take all the wealth from the people, and they actually think they. And then the next day, oh, it dropped, and then they start talking about how many dollars it dropped. No, the dollar is the coin, and then they call it a coin, and it's a total abstract, and it changes faces by the hour. You ask them, well, let me see your book. How do you bookkeep it? You can't even bookkeep it. Who's the bookkeeper? You can't even name them. Then they'll make up another one with another name and say, well, this one split and it went over there. And then you lost half your investment. Well, no, the investment you lost was the dollar you gave them in the first place.
I know.
People,
I got that.
Their contempt is so deep for the people. They're seeing how far they can go. This is why somebody like Dr. Pruitt was saying, this is why intelligent people are come rescue humanity. Because, this is beyond the Santa Claus argument with adults, if you get the point. Because a child can recognize, if you put this coin here, and then you put the Bitcoin on it and tell the child, go pick up the coins on there. Well, where's the Bitcoin? I can't find it. Or it lost value, so it disappeared. But tomorrow it might go back up and you'll find it on the desk. It ain't going to happen.
Never going to be on the desk.
The fact, it can't be weight. It has no weight. Yes, it's called a bit, which means a piece. So if it's a piece, that means there's a measure. But then there's no chart that shows you the measure. Then if you see the chart today, it ain't what the chart is tomorrow. But you had to give this up to get that, and then you call this $1? And that's the jewel, Dr. J. And being in the world but not of the is not just a spiritual saying. It is a state of being. It is a jurisdiction of the mind. If you allow yourself to be governed by distractions, you are of the world. If you govern yourself by truth, by nationality, by higher law, you are in the world, but not of it. Yeah. And when the artificial, anti-constitutional, anti-common sense, fiat bond systems collapses, which is doing now, and when the distractions multiply, which are happening right now, and when the empire falls, and it's falling right now, why? Because the illusion dies, the illusion that's attached to it dies, right? Mm-hmm. So the only ones who stand will be those who knew who they were, those who are grounded themselves in real value, in reality, in things that are measured, that have breadth, depth, and principle, etc., who refuse to give their attention away cheaply to illusions of shape-shifting instrumentalities that you can't even hold in your hand and say, here's the Bitcoin. And so they give their attention and their own jurisdiction away cheaply. And that is our mandate.
Well, yeah. What do we call this? Parallel timelines, escaping the circus.
Because it's a circus.
The circus of distraction. And I want to close with some practical ways, perhaps, to suggestions to stay grounded. That's what it's all about. And I mentioned this as something I do, at least I try to do, but y'all keep calling me, so I can't do this all the time. But take a digital Sabbath, choose a day to fast. We talk about fasting from food. Well, fast from social media, news, the cell phone, if you will. That's a way of, creating a different environment in a different reality in which to dwell in. You can be selective, with your intake. Don't let the algorithms choose your reality. You choose what you want to read, choose what you want to study. We said, and what you feed your spirit. It say study yourself,
Yes.
right? Know thyself, study yourself.
Yes.
And breathe. Here's one. Breathe before you start scrolling. Like you take 3 deep, like sometimes, I like to shop, unfortunately. I'm working on it, but sometimes, I'll just put something in a cart just to feel like I've shopped, but I got to take it back out and move away from the page. Because if I didn't, I'd be broke as a joke.
Yeah.
Feeding everything that jumps up on my screen. And so we have to learn how to say no, to turn away from it, take 3, sometimes send a message. I'll call you back later. Don't engage, especially if it's somebody that's going to take you there, because some calls, I know sometimes that it's going to be a doozy. It's going to drain my energy. It's going to tap into my mental faculties.
It's designed to do that.
I just can't do it. So we have to learn to, and then finally we have to learn how to, I think, build in the real world. He talked about Bitcoin and different things like that, but invest in your health, invest in your wealth. Like I said, I've been telling y'all guys about the, getting your coins through. Some of you are with me and have left Quicksilver, but let me tell you something. I'm going to just throw this up again. When I decided to listen to what you said back at 5 years almost now. Matter of fact, it was already 5 years. Yeah, 5 years ago. And to be able to have, significant silver, because I stuck with it. Even if I had to break it down from getting 20 coins a month to getting 1, I still kept getting.
It would cost you more than double right now.
Oh, when I was getting for $22, 23 notes or whatever, now it's 40 some. So
this what they're doing. It went past 50 and they artificially pushed it back down.
Yeah.
And so that let's tell you that is breaking. That is breaking. Now,
but what? I got one gold. Let me say this. I got some fractional pieces of gold, but I did invest back maybe about a couple of years back in a gold coin. It doesn't even, the weight of it doesn't feel as heavy as the silver for some reason. But it's a 1 ounce gold coin, which I purchased for 19 something. It's now worth hitting towards $4 grand.
Yes.
For that one little coin. So, invest in yourself, get you some silver, or get you some gold. Even, I even get something now, Grand Chic. If you open this up, if you can unzip that, for folks that might not be able to, afford, because gold is expensive. That's silver, but this, what does that look like? Like a baseball card? This looks like a little baseball cards. And these look like, and this is gold right here in, where my finger go, in the center. That's that if I had, if stuff goes south and I have to go, so that's
anywhere in the world,
that's 1/4 of a grain.
Anywhere in the world.
A quarter grain of gold. There's a quarter grain of gold.
Yes.
I can go shopping with
now.
it.
Let's look at this. Does this crash?
No.
Oh, can it crash?
No.
Anywhere in the world?
Anywhere in the world.
All right. Let me hold on. Hold your hand open. Hold your hand. Let me see. Hold your hand open. Where's that Bitcoin? No. Where's that? Here's the Bitcoin. Can you see it? And see it? Wait, the Bitcoin shapeshift. Wait, it fluctuated. It went somewhere. Yeah. Right.
What I'm trying to say is, these are reasonable. I think I get 4 or 5 coins, 6 coins a month for like 40 something for this. I mean, it's little, but if I wanted to take my whole gold coin and get a loaf of bread, they take it, but I'm not gonna get no change.
Right.
So I got pieces. Look like baseball cards. Look at all that. That's gold.
Now, so
all this is gold. This was silver back then.
What is, when you're looking at what's going on in the world, what is the background that's happening? They're having the politics that are going on right now and it's back to some of the comprehension Dr. Pruitt will probably be explaining to the people. Then you understand the Sara and Gasara. And it doesn't mean that these people are really honorable. It's that they have no choice. So they have to now use their intelligence and what's left of anybody that wants to kind of stop the world from collapsing. They can't stop collapses. What they have to do is intelligently dismantle, remove. So they're going to have to remove systems and persons without alarming the public. So you have removal and dismantling of systems and persons on a scale that would cause shock and alarm. By necessity, not by bias. If not, they all lose. Do you understand? This is why, as we talked years ago, when we used to have pack house and sometimes not enough chairs. I said 8-9 years ago for a street, the nations are going to stop buying U.S. Treasury bonds. When
you kept saying, look at Deutsche Bank. You kept saying, watch Deutsche Bank.
Germany.
Yeah.
Because when you see it, most people are already too late. That's the reality. That means people who are going to be thinking, right, to do this, right?
Right.
With the fiat, it's not going to be accepted because it's dead. Are we clear?
Shout out to Dr. Kia. Peace and love to you,
Dr.
sister.
Kia?
Thank you for being in the house, sister.
Yes.
We appreciate you. We big up in you because we realize that you are such an integral part of our survival and our being able to be living in the world but not of the world. And we appreciate everything that you're doing.
Intelligence tells the people how, not emotional.
Right.
See, when she's what does she do? She will break things down, show you documentation, show you that there's a political side of operations that's happening and it's being published, but yet it's not being published by mainstream. When you know the geopolitics, you will find these things because that's where your head is. It's not that it's not there, but if your head is not there, you don't see it. However, as things collapse, the people can't say they weren't told.
True.
Now, the other interesting thing, and this is what I've always said, Dr. J, the same way someone can go on any one of these sites and see Dr. Pruitt, right? This is what has to stop. People have got to stop making excuses for the politicians, the preachers, the priesthood, who knew this information all the while. And some people may think, oh, because they come here on the House of Awakening Minds, or they go to see Dr. Pruitt, and they think this is some kind of new stuff. It's not new. It's few people are willing to put themselves out there and tell the truth, because you get attacked. This is why a lot of people have the truth. They'll know it, and they'll talk, like in office like this, but they won't get on that hill. They won't get out there in that street. They won't let themselves be seen publicly because they already know the attacks come. Why? Because they know all of these people always knew it. Always knew it. Now, the issue that's happening on the planet is that once the nations took the position that they no longer can sustain the lie because they're collapsing, Now they're talking. And then people think, oh, wow, they're being honorable. No, they're not. The same way with a lot of middle-class Europeans are making videos talking about the Republic, talking about Gassara and Nasara. They weren't saying that 10 years ago. Why? Because middle class was still somewhat stable. When it became obvious that they were being thrown under the bus and they can no longer project it to others, if you get the point, and then border people taking our jobs and stuff. They can't get that off anymore. It just doesn't work. And it doesn't matter. So they're telling the truth too. Anyway,
well,
Dr.
listen,
Brooke, keep up the good work.
We love you. Thank you so much. Listen, we're going to bring this to an end, but I want to thank those of you who the last time we were on, I said there was a meeting coming up, and you know, I was going to a private meeting, or I was going to for invitation only. We had a small meeting, but the meeting that I was talking to you all about is coming up on Sunday. Thank you to all of those who responded with Count Me In. I'm going to put this up here. This is the last opportunity. If you want to be part of this meeting, it's an introductory meeting, which is going to take place on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Text this number, just say Count Me In, and to this number, and you'll get a link. The link will require you to register, but it's free. Just need to put your appellation and an email address. Is just for us. It's just our capture mechanism. And you'll be able to go back to the same link on Sunday at 1, and you'll have access. So this is the last opportunity. The actual meeting is coming up on Sunday. And if you want to be part of that, you know, then please send me a text. Like I said, I've already sent out probably about 100 invites, but if you want to be in it, then please do so. We thank you. We really appreciate your attentiveness, and you coming here on the every first and third
sharing
Friday.
with us.
Right.
Yes.
And like I said, on the fourth Fridays, of course, Grand Chic, along with Teaching Lady J and myself, are at the House of Reawakening Minds, live and in living, not color, but we're there in living sentient beings. And if you want to come and be part of it, you know, certainly. I mean, you remember I don't know if Sis is watching, but there was one about 2 months ago. Sis came all the way from London. For a Friday class. Yeah, she flew in from the UK. And so we, big ups to her for doing that. So, if you're in the tri-state area, or even if you want to come in from Cali or Florida. Sister came up from Florida that same day. You remember? She's all hopped on a plane, and I came up at the time.
Chris took a bus from Canada.
Came down to Canada.
Yeah.
So we have a good time, and that's coming up on the fourth Friday of this month. I want to say it's the 25th. Whatever the fourth Friday is, it's the 25th. And if you'd like to be part of that, please do. Come. It's not you don't have to register, just come. We'll open the doors at 6:30, and we're there until we're there until. So I don't know if that's any.
So a shout out again to Dr. Dave, Dr. Iligan.
Right.
Yeah.
Teaching Lady J and Sister Deborah Clark Smith L, who worked us. She worked us. I could feel it the next day, but it was a good workout. It was a good work. It was good work.
Yeah, Sister Cynthia, as usual,
is the organizer. Came all in from. She's our
comes in all from Texas.
Chairman of the board in Texas, and she handles her business, and I appreciate her. I love her to the as she said, the zircon and back. I appreciate her, but we appreciate each one of you too. We may not know each and every one of you, personally. We may not have had a chance to hug you and all that, but those that were here this weekend, we got a chance to hug on. And I want to thank you all for coming out and for the words we've gotten back of people who really enjoyed themselves. I certainly did, and look forward to. We'll be doing some things throughout the year, but our next big conference won't be until August. So we'll be doing some things, and Dr. Dave and Dr. Elegant and stuff. We're gonna do some some holistic stuff, and I don't know, maybe Sister Deborah, she can come up from North Carolina and do a class for us. But we appreciate each and every one of you.
Anyway, Islam. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, Roddy Macon, Rona Bort.
This is not merely a building. It's a sanctuary of remembrance, a threshold where the veil parts, and minds once lulled to sleep begin to rise. This is the house of reawakening minds.
I entered in silence, intellect and despair, seeking refuge from illusions thick in the air. Walls lined with scrolls, lectures dense with light, where knowledge resurrects what was hidden from sight. No pulpit performance, no charismatic show, just a word in its purity, allowing the soul to grow. History unpacked with surgical precision, exposing falsehood, restoring vision. They taught me jurisdiction, the power of a name, how to stand in one's truth, free from legal games, from colonial codes to Moorish descent. I learned that ignorance is the true imprisonment. Not just the church, this is consciousness refined. I found myself inside the house of.
This is sacred ground, not just wood and stone. A haven for the seekers who once felt alone. Here the veil is lifted, the contract unwinds. In the house of reawakening minds. Truth is the altar, wisdom is the flame. Every soul remembered, every bloodline reclaimed. Time collapses and the spirit aligns. Inside the house of reawakening
We
minds.
speak of capitis, diminution, and trust law with grace, pulling veils from the statutes that distort the race. Reverend Doctor don't preach, she teaches through metaphysical keys and universal speeches. From Egypt to Amexim, maps are redrawn, and the minds of the lost are profoundly reborn. They decode etymology, undo the brands, expose how black was a corporate sleight of hand. This is reclamation through language and tone, where status is corrected and sovereigns are grown. From natural law to the astrological signs, the cosmos converge in these sacred confines. This ain't dogma, it's the science of the divine. Every lecture a seed in the garden of the
I
mind.
said know thyself but gave no guide until I found the house where illusions died. Here the soul remembers, the contract is clear. We are the heirs and the ancestors cheer. This is sacred ground, not just wood and stone. A haven for the seekers who once felt alone. Here the veil is lifted, the contract unwinds. In the house of reawakening minds. Truth is the altar, wisdom is the flame. Every soul remembered, every bloodline reclaimed. Time collapses and the spirit aligns. Inside the house of reawakening.
They don't ask you to believe.